Welcome to Hearths of Myths. Today, the mountain mists part, and a golden light pierces the clouds. We are tracing the immortal footsteps of the great sage equaling heaven, Sun Wukong. Close your eyes, settle in, and let the stone awaken. In the boundless expanse of the primordial chaos, before the separation of heaven and earth, there existed only a singular, indistinct potentiality. It was a time when the universe was held in a delicate suspension, a breath waiting to be exhaled. From this misty obscurity, order began to coalesce, separating the pure yang, which rose to form the luminous sky, from the heavy yin, which settled to form the vast, sprawling earth. Between these two great poles of existence, life began to flourish, driven by the ceaseless cycling of the five elements and the rhythmic passage of the four seasons. Far to the east, across the misty waves of the great eastern ocean, lay the Aolai country. Just beyond its shores, rising majestically from the rolling tides like a jagged emerald piercing the blue silk of the sea, stood the mountain of flowers and fruit. This was no ordinary peak. It was the ancestral artery of the 10 continents, the dragon vein of the 3 islands, a place of immense spiritual potency where the energies of the cosmos converged in a silent, throbbing symphony. At the very summit of this sacred mountain, perched precariously on a crag that kissed the clouds, lay an immortal stone. It was ancient, seemingly as old as creation itself. Its dimensions were not random, but divinely geometric, reflecting the hidden mathematics of the universe. The stone stood exactly 36 feet and 5 inches in height, corresponding to the 365 degrees of the celestial cycle. Its circumference measured exactly 24 feet, mirroring the 24 solar terms of the lunar calendar. Upon its weathered surface, beaten by eons of wind and rain, were 9 perforations and 8 holes, arranged in accordance with the 9 palaces and the 8 trigrams of the I Ching. For countless millennia, this sentient rock sat motionless, a silent observer of the turning world. It possessed no mouth, yet it drank deep of the universe. It absorbed the pure essence of heaven, the rich nourishment of earth, the fiery vigor of the sun, and the cool, silvery grace of the moon. Day after day, century after century, the stone respired, inhaling the spiritual chi of the cosmos and condensing it within its rocky heart. Inside this cold granite shell, something was stirring, a divine embryo, nurtured by the very foundational forces of reality. The transformation from mineral to life was slow, a geological gestation that spanned epochs. But the Tao acts in its own time. One day, when the alignment of the stars clicked into a fortuitous geometry, the stone could contain its gathered energy no longer. It split open. It did not shatter into dust, but rather birthed a stone egg, perfectly spherical, and roughly the size of a ball. As the winds of the mountain caressed it, the stone egg transformed, shedding its rocky exterior to reveal a stone monkey, fully formed, with distinct limbs and facial features. This was no ordinary birth. It was a cosmic event. As the stone monkey opened his eyes, 2 beams of golden light shot forth, piercing the veil of the sky and flashing all the way to the palace of the pole star. The intensity of this gaze was so profound that it startled the Jade Emperor himself, the supreme ruler of the heavens, as he sat in his cloud palace of the Golden Gates. The Emperor, witnessing this strange luminescence, dispatched his captains, the 1,000-mile eye, and the with-the-wind ear to investigate the source of this disturbance. They returned with the news of the monkey's birth, a creature compounded of the essence of heaven and earth. The Jade Emperor, in his infinite mercy, dismissed the event with a wave of his hand. These creatures in the world below are born of the essence of heaven and earth, he declared. There is nothing remarkable about him. And so the golden light in the monkey's eyes gradually faded as he consumed the water and food of the mortal realm, grounding his spirit in the dust of the earth. But the potential for greatness, for chaos, and for enlightenment remained, dormant but potent, within his stone heart. This marked the beginning of a saga that would shake the foundations of the three realms. It was not merely the birth of a monkey, but the arrival of a force of nature, a being who would challenge the gods, erase his name from death, and eventually ascend to the highest echelons of spiritual awakening. But before the wars with heaven and the journey to the west, there was simply a monkey on a mountain, alive with the joy of existence, unaware that his destiny was written in the stars he had so briefly illuminated. The early life of the stone monkey was an idyll of primal innocence. The mountain of flowers and fruit was a paradise, a lush tapestry of verdant forests, cascading waterfalls, and trees heavy with peaches and plums that seemed to ripen in perpetual succession. The monkey lived a life of unbridled freedom. He walked, he ran, he leapt over bubbling streams and bounded up jagged cliffs. He befriended the gibbons and the baboons, the deer and the civets. At night, he slept beneath overhanging cliffs, the stone of the mountain cooling his back. By day he roamed the peaks and caves, his laughter mingling with the calls of the wild cranes. It was a society of simplicity, governed only by the rhythms of hunger and sleep. Yet, intelligence flickered behind the stone monkey's eyes. He was not merely an animal, he possessed a curiosity, a drive that set him apart from his kin. One sweltering summer morning, seeking relief from the heat, the troop of monkeys gathered by a mountain stream to bathe. They frolicked in the cool water, splashing and chasing one another. As they played, their curiosity turned toward the source of the stream. "Where does this water come from?" they chattered among themselves. "Let us follow it to its source." With the stone monkey in their midst, the troop scrambled up the mountainside, clawing their way through tangles of creepers and over mossy boulders until they reached a magnificent sight. A great waterfall, like a curtain of white silk, hung suspended from the heavens, crashing down into a deep pool with a roar that shook the very earth. The spray rose like smoke, creating rainbows in the sunlight. It was a barrier of water, impenetrable and mysterious. The monkeys stared in awe. "What a magnificent water!" they exclaimed. Then a challenge arose from the group. "If anyone is brave enough to penetrate that curtain, find the source, and return unharmed, we will make him our king." 3 times the call went out, and 3 times the ordinary monkeys hesitated. The water was too fierce, the drop too high. But the stone monkey, bold and impetuous, stepped forward. "I will go," he cried. He crouched low, tensed his powerful legs, and with a mighty leap, sprang directly into the pounding deluge. He did not dash his brains against a rock, nor did he drown in the churning pool. Instead, he found himself on solid ground. Opening his eyes, he saw that the water was indeed like a curtain covering a bridge, an iron plate bridge that spanned a chasm. Beyond the bridge lay a cavern, dry and spacious, It was a heavenly grotto, naturally furnished with stone seats, stone beds, and stone bowls, as if prepared by unseen hands for a master. Moss grew in emerald patches on the walls, and the air was sweet with the scent of hidden flowers. At the entrance of the cave, carved into the rock in large seal-script characters, were the words, "The Water Curtain Cave of the Flower Fruit Mountain." Overjoyed by his discovery, the stone monkey leaped back through the waterfall to report his findings. "A haven," he shouted to the trembling troop. "A palace. No more sleeping under the stars, no more shivering in the rain. There is room for us all, and safety from the tigers and wolves." Led by the stone monkey, the entire troop, gibbons, baboons, macaques, plunged through the water curtain. They ran wild in their new home, claiming stone beds and fighting over stone bowls in their excitement. When the chaos finally subsided, the stone monkey took his seat at the highest stone bench. He looked down upon his kin and reminded them of their promise. "I have led you to safety," he declared. "I have found you a kingdom. Am I not your king?" The monkeys, recognizing his bravery and his favor with fortune, prostrated themselves before him. They lined up according to age and rank and bowed their heads, chanting, "Great King! 1,000 years! Great King!" From that day forward, the stone monkey discarded his old identity. He was no longer just a product of the earth. He was the handsome Monkey King. He appointed ministers and generals from among the gibbons and baboons, establishing a court of order within the chaos of nature. For 300 to 500 years, he ruled in bliss. The days were filled with feasting on fresh fruit, and the nights with peaceful slumber behind the protective veil of the waterfall. It seemed a perfect existence, a life of unending joy separated from the cares of the mortal world. But the seeds of existential dread often sprout in the most fertile soil. One day, during a great banquet, while the other monkeys laughed and drank coconut wine, the Monkey King suddenly fell silent. A shadow passed over his face, and tears began to trickle down his golden fur. The festivities halted. "Great King," the monkeys asked in alarm, "what troubles you? Why do you weep in the midst of our joy?" The Monkey King sighed, a sound heavy with a newfound awareness. "I am happy today," he confessed, his voice trembling, "but I worry about the future. Although we are not subject to the laws of man or the predation of beasts, we are not free. Old age and physical decay wait for us in the shadows, and one day Yama, the king of death, will come to claim our souls. We shall cease to be. We shall endure the darkness of non-existence. Is this not cause for sorrow?" A hush fell over the cave. The monkeys covered their faces, weeping at the realization of their own mortality. They had lived in the moment, but their king had looked toward the horizon and seen the cliff edge of death. Then, from the back of the crowd, a gibbon stepped forward. He was old and wise, his fur gray with the dust of years. "Great King," he said, his voice raspy but firm. "If you have these thoughts, it shows the awakening of a spiritual heart. It is the beginning of the way. There are, in this vast world, 3 kinds of beings who are not subject to the King of Death." The Monkey King's eyes snapped open, the tears forgotten. "Who are they?" he demanded. "The Buddhas, the Immortals, and the Holy Sages," the gibbon replied. "They have transcended the cycle of reincarnation." They are as eternal as the mountains and the rivers, as enduring as heaven and earth." "Where do they live?" the Monkey King asked, leaping from his throne. "They dwell in the human world," the gibbon explained, "in ancient caves on holy mountains or deep within the clouds." A fire was lit in the Monkey King's heart, a flame that would eventually consume the heavens. "I will go," he declared, his determination hardening like iron. "I will leave my kingdom, cross the great seas, and travel to the ends of the earth. I will find these immortals and learn their secrets. I will be young forever. I will conquer death itself." The decision was made. The monkeys, though saddened by his departure, prepared a farewell feast. They gathered the sweetest peaches and the finest wines. The next morning, the Monkey King boarded a simple pine raft they had constructed. He stood alone on the fragile craft, staring out at the vast, terrifying expanse of the ocean. With a strong wind at his back, and the cheers of his subjects fading into the roar of the surf, the Monkey King set sail. He was leaving behind the innocence of the mountain for the harsh, transformative fires of the world. The journey of the Monkey King was not a brief excursion. It was an odyssey that spanned continents and years. His raft, guided by the whims of the wind, carried him first across the great eastern ocean to the southern Jambudvipa continent. Here, he stepped onto the shore of the human world for the first time. What he found was both fascinating and repellent. He saw humans fishing, hunting, and toiling in the fields. To the Monkey King, they were strange, hairless creatures, driven by petty desires and fleeting emotions. Yet, he knew he must blend in if he were to find a master. He stole clothes from drying lines, an oversized robe and a strange hat, and walked upright, mimicking the swaying gait of the humans. He wandered through bustling market towns and quiet villages, frequenting noodles shops and tea houses. He listened to their conversations, hoping to catch a whisper of immortals or the Tao. But all he heard were discussions of fame and profit, of buying and selling, of love and grievances. These people, he realized with disdain, were red dust travelers, trapped in the illusion of material existence, oblivious to the ticking clock of their own mortality. For 8 or 9 years, he wandered the southern continent. He learned human speech and human manners, but he found no sages. He saw the great walls of cities and the majesty of emperors, but none of it impressed him as much as the promise of eternal life. Disheartened, but not defeated, he concluded that the immortals must dwell elsewhere. He built another raft and set sail again, this time crossing the Western Ocean to reach the western Aparagodania continent. It was here, in a land of towering peaks and mist-shrouded valleys, that destiny finally intercepted him. He came upon a magnificent mountain, high and craggy, where the air hummed with spiritual resonance. As he climbed, he heard a sound, not the roar of a beast, but the clear, rhythmic voice of a woodcutter singing a song. I watch the chess game in the quiet woods. The axe handle rots while the game is played. I walk through the clouds and the pine tree roots, singing the Tao as the twilight fades. The lyrics struck the Monkey King like a thunderbolt. Singing the Tao! He rushed forward and grabbed the woodcutter. Immortal, old immortal, please teach me the way. The woodcutter, startled by the talking monkey in human clothes, laughed. I am no immortal, he said, shaking his head. I am but a simple man who cuts wood to support my aging mother. But the song I sing was taught to me by an immortal who lives on this very mountain. He told me it would comfort me in my labors." "Where is this immortal?" Monkey asked, his eyes wide with hope. "This is the mountain of heart and mind," the woodcutter explained, pointing a calloused finger toward the misty peaks. "Deep within lies the cave of the slanting moon and 3 stars. An immortal lives there, by the name of the patriarch Subodhi. He has taught countless disciples, and many are still with him. Go that way, and you will find his abode." The Monkey King thanked the woodcutter and scrambled up the path. He emerged from a dense pine forest to find a cave entrance, tightly shut, enveloped in a serene silence. Outside stood a stone tablet inscribed with the words, "Mountain of Heart and Mind, Cave of the Slanting Moon, and 3 stars." He did not dare knock, fearing he might disturb the sage. Instead, he climbed a pine tree and waited, picking at pine cones. Before long, the heavy stone doors creaked open, and a young immortal boy with features like carved jade stepped out. "Who is making a disturbance out here?" the boy asked. The Monkey King dropped from the tree and bowed deeply. "I am a seeker of the way," he said humbly. "I dare not make a disturbance." The boy looked him over. "My master, the patriarch, has just ascended his dais to lecture. He told me to open the door, saying that a seeker of the way had arrived. You must be him." "I am! I am!" Monkey cried. He followed the boy into the depths of the cave. It was a world unto itself, a palace of divine architecture with pavilions of jade and towers of gold. They walked through corridors of stillness until they reached the green jade hall. There, sitting upon a dais, surrounded by 30 lesser immortals, sat the patriarch Subodhi. Subodhi was a figure of immense gravity and ancient wisdom. He was neither purely Taoist nor purely Buddhist, but a synthesis of both, a master who understood the fundamental mechanics of the universe. He looked down at the prostrate monkey. "Where are you from?" he asked, his voice echoing like a bell. "What is your name?" "I am from the water-curtain cave of the flower-fruit mountain," Monkey replied, knocking his head on the floor. "I have no parents. I was born from a stone egg." The patriarch listened to the tale of his birth and his journey. "If you were born of heaven and earth," Subodhi mused, "then you are a natural child of the universe. But you have no name. Walk a few steps for me." Monkey waddled back and forth, imitating the human gait he had practiced. Subodhi smiled. "You look like a macaque that feeds on pine nuts. The character for macaque is hu. If I drop the animal radical, we are left with gu, moon. That is not good. Let us look at the character sun, monkey. If we drop the animal radical, we are left with z and xe, which implies a baby boy. That fits the doctrine of the baby. So your surname shall be Sun." "Splendid," Monkey clapped his hands. "I have a surname. But what of my given name?" "Within my school," Subodhi said, "there are 12 generations of names. Broad, great, wise, smart, true, conforming, nature, ocean, quick, awakened, round, and Ju, enlightenment. You belong to the 10th generation, the character Wu, awakened. I will give you the name Wukong. meaning awakened to emptiness. Thus, your full name is Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong, awakened to emptiness. The name resonated in the hall. It was a name that promised both the vast potential of the void and the terrifying power of detachment. And so, Sun Wukong began his life as a disciple. For 6 or 7 years he did not learn magic. Instead, he learned patience. He swept the grounds, hoed the gardens, gathered firewood, and fetched water. He studied the scriptures, learning to read and write, reciting the sutras and the canons of the Tao. He lived among the other disciples, sleeping in the dormitory and eating coarse rice. It was a life of humility, designed to polish the rough stone of his nature. One day, the patriarch ascended the dais to speak on the Great Way. His words were like flowers falling from the heavens, profound and mysterious. Sun Wukong, sitting in the back, was so overcome with joy at hearing the truth that he began to dance, scratching his ears and rubbing his cheeks, unable to contain his delight. Subodhi spotted him. "Why are you madly dancing and disturbing the lecture?" "I could not help it," Wukong apologized. "The words touched my heart." "Tell me," Subodhi asked, "how long have you been here?" "I do not know the years," Wukong said. "I only know that I have eaten my fill of peaches on the mountain 7 times. 7 years, Subodhi nodded. "What do you wish to learn from me?" "There are 360 side doors to the Tao, and all lead to illumination." "I want to learn how to live forever," Wukong stated bluntly. Subodhi then offered him a menu of arts: divination, philosophy, quietism, action. For each one, Wukong asked the same question: "Does it grant eternal life?" "No," Subodhi replied each time. "It is like a brick in a wall, sturdy but not eternal." "I won't learn it! I won't learn it!" Wukong shouted, dismissing the sacred arts as useless trinkets. The patriarch feigned anger. He jumped from the dais, struck Wukong on the head 3 times with his ruler, folded his hands behind his back, and marched into his private chambers, slamming the middle door behind him. The other disciples were horrified. "You foolish monkey!" they cried. "You have offended the master." But Wukong sat smiling, silent and knowing. He had solved the riddle. Striking the head 3 times meant, "Come to my room at the 3rd watch of the night." Folding the hands behind the back meant, "Use the back door." That night, at the 3rd watch, while the moon hung high and the mountain slept, Wukong crept to the back door of the master's chamber. It was unlocked. He found Subodhi sitting on his bed, facing the wall in meditation. Wukong knelt by the bed and waited. Eventually, Subodhi turned. "You mischievous monkey! You understood my secret sign. Please, master," Wukong pleaded. "Teach me the way of immortality." Recognizing the monkey's profound spiritual intuition, Subodhi agreed. In the dead of night, he whispered the secrets of the longevity of the great vehicle into Wukong's ear. He taught him how to gather the cosmic chi, how to marry the liquid jade with the golden elixir within his body, and how to strengthen the root of his life force. Wukong absorbed the teachings like a dry sponge. For 3 years, he practiced secret breathing and internal alchemy, until his bones became as hard as diamond and his spirit as bright as the sun. He had achieved the first step. He was no longer a mortal. But Subodhi warned him, though you have extended your life, you are still subject to the three calamities. Every 500 years, heaven will send lightning to strike you, fire to burn you, and wind to dissolve you. You must learn to avoid them. Teach me, Wukong begged. I can teach you the 72 earthly transformations, Subodhi offered, which allow you to change your form into anything, a bird, a tree, a bug, or even another person. This will hide you from the eyes of heaven. Wukong learned them all. He mastered the art of shape-shifting, his body becoming fluid and mutable. He also learned the cloud somersault, Jindu Yun, while other immortals could ride clouds slowly. Subodhi taught Wukong a method that allowed him to travel 108,000 li, approximately 33,500 miles, in a single leap. With a twist of his waist and a boundless spring, he could cross the world in the blink of an eye. 10 years had passed since Wukong arrived at the cave. He was now a master of magic, immortal and powerful. But pride, the old companion of power, began to resurface. One day, the other disciples egged him on. Sun Wukong, show us your transformations. Eager to show off, Wukong transformed into a pine tree, perfectly detailed, from the rough bark to the green needles. The disciples clapped and cheered, making such a racket that the patriarch came storming out. "What is this noise?" Subodhi demanded. Seeing the pine tree, he understood. He banished the other disciples and turned a cold eye on Wukong. "You are showing off," Subodhi said sternly. "When you display your treasure to others, they will envy you. They will want it. If you do not give it to them, they will kill you. Your time here is done." Wukong fell to his knees. "Master, where shall I go?" "Go back to where you came from," Subodhi said. "But mark my words, Sun Wukong. You possess great power and a wild heart. You will cause trouble. You will shake the pillars of the sky. But know this, I forbid you from ever mentioning my name. Do not tell anyone who taught you. If you breathe a word of me, I will know. I will strip the skin from your bones and banish your soul to the 9th darkness, so that you will never be reincarnated for 10,000 eons." "I promise," Wukong swore, terror gripping his heart. "I will never say a word." With a heavy heart but a liberated spirit, Sun Wukong performed his cloud somersault. He shot into the sky, leaving the mountain of heart and mind behind. He was returning to the Flower Fruit Mountain, not as a stone monkey, but as a master of the Tao, possessing the powers of a god. The world was about to learn the name of the Monkey King. Upon his return to the Mountain of Flowers and Fruit, Sun Wukong found his idyllic kingdom marred by the scars of conflict. During his 20-year absence, seeking the Tao, a monstrous entity known as the Demon King of Confusion had seized upon the vulnerability of the leaderless monkeys. He had burned their lush forests, stole their possessions, and dragged many of the little ones away into slavery. Wukong, now possessed of immortal anger and divine arts, wasted no time. With a mere handful of fur plucked from his body, chewed into bits, and blown into the wind, he conjured 1,000 clones of himself. The battle was short and decisive. The Demon King of Confusion fell. His dark fortress was shattered. and the kidnapped monkeys were returned to their ancestral home. Peace was restored. But a seed of concern had been planted in the Monkey King's heart. He realized that while he was immortal, his subjects were defenseless. He spent the following months drilling them in martial arts, replacing their playful games with the discipline of the spear and the sword. However, Wukong himself faced a dilemma. Having studied under the patriarch Subodhi, his strength had grown so immense that earthly weapons felt like brittle twigs in his hands. He shattered iron swords with a casual swing. Spears snapped under the pressure of his grip. "I am a sage without a proper artifact," he lamented, sitting upon his throne, tossing aside a broken scimitar. An elder gibbon stepped forward, bowing low. "Great King," he whispered, "earthly iron is too common for your immortal spirit. But beneath the waves of the great eastern ocean, directly below our waterfall, lies the crystal domain of Guang, the dragon king of the East Sea. His treasury is filled with ancient wonders. Why not go down and ask him for a weapon?" Wukong's eyes lit up. "Wait for me here," he commanded. He leaped to the iron plate bridge, recited a water-repelling spell, and plunged into the churning depths. He sank through the layers of the ocean, past the schools of silver fish, past the swaying forests of kelp, down into the crushing darkness where bioluminescent creatures drifted like ghosts. At the bottom of the sea, the water cleared to reveal a spectacle of breathtaking opulence. The Crystal Palace. It was a city of translucent jade and shimmering pearl. Pillars of pink coral supported roofs tiled with lapis lazuli. The light here was not from the sun, but from millions of glowing pearls embedded in the walls, casting a soft, ethereal twilight over the silent currents. A Yaksha patrol blocked his path. "Who goes there?" "I am the Monkey King of Flower Fruit Mountain, a neighbor of your old dragon king," Wukong announced. News of the powerful neighbor reached Guang, who hurriedly came out to receive him. The dragon king was a majestic figure, with horns of branching coral and robes embroidered with waves. He led Wukong into the great hall, where tea was served in cups of agate. "What brings the High Immortal to my humble, watery abode?" Guang asked nervously, sensing the immense, suppressed power radiating from the monkey. "I have recently perfected the way of immortality," Wukong said, setting down his cup. "But I lack a weapon that suits my hand. I have heard my neighbor enjoys a vast treasury. I have come to borrow something useful." Guang, wishing to send this dangerous guest away quickly, ordered his general to bring out a heavy scimitar. Wukong took it, waved it once, and shook his head. "Too light, too light. It feels like a piece of paper." The Dragon King ordered a 9-pronged fork, weighing 3,600 catties. Wukong caught it with one hand, twirled it like a baton, and tossed it aside. "Still too light. Do you have nothing heavier?" Guang began to sweat. He ordered the heaviest weapon in his arsenal, the great halberd used by the Celestial Guards, weighing 7,200 catties. Wukong lifted it, frowned, and said, "It's a little better, but still it lacks substance. I need weight." The Dragon King was terrified. "Great sage," he stammered, "there is nothing heavier in the palace." At that moment, the Dragon Mother and her daughter glided from behind a screen of pearls. They whispered into the king's ear, "This monkey is no ordinary saint. Why not offer him that piece of useless iron in the ocean treasury, the one that has been glowing with a strange light these past few days? That, Ao Guang whispered back, that is the needle that calms the ocean depths. It was left here by Yu the Great when he tamed the primordial floods. It is not a weapon, it is a measuring rod. Just give it to him and let him go, the Dragon Mother urged. Ao Guang led Wukong to the deepest vault of the ocean. There, standing amidst a field of sea flowers, was a massive pillar of black iron. It was 20 feet high and as thick as a barrel. A strange golden luminescence pulsed from it, illuminating the dark waters. Wukong walked up to the pillar. He ran his hand along its cold, rough surface. A connection, ancient and electric, sparked between the monkey and the iron. "It's a bit too thick," Wukong muttered, "and a bit too long. If only it were smaller." As if obeying his thought, the pillar shrank instantly, becoming a few feet shorter and thinner. Wukong gasped in delight. "Smaller, smaller still," he commanded. The iron obeyed. It shrank until it was the size of a fighting staff, perfectly balanced, heavy and dense. Wukong seized it. It was black iron, capped on both ends with golden hoops. Engraved along the shaft in seal characters was its name: the Compliant Golden Hooped Rod. Weight, 13,500 catties. It was the Ruyi Jingu Bang. It was a weapon of unfathomable density, heavy enough to crush mountains, yet obedient to Wukong's will. He swung it, and the ocean churned. Waves rolled for miles. The crystal palace shook to its foundations. Turtles and crabs hid in their shells. The dragons trembled. "This will do," Wukong laughed, but he was not finished. "Old Dragon King, now that I have a weapon, I feel rather underdressed. A warrior needs armor." Ao Guang pleaded poverty, but Wukong began to twirl the staff, turning the water in the hall into a vortex. "I will sit here until you find me some," Wukong threatened. Desperate, Ao Guang struck the iron drum and rang the golden bell to summon his 3 brothers: Ao Qin of the south, Ao Shun of the north, and Ao Run of the west. They arrived in a whirlwind of currents, annoyed and haughty, until they saw the monkey wielding the pillar of Yu the Great. To get rid of him, they stripped their own treasuries. From the north came a pair of cloud-walking boots made of lotus fiber, capable of treading on air. From the west came a suit of golden chain mail, impervious to blades. From the south came a phoenix feather cap, its long plumes shimmering with crimson light. Wukong donned the regalia. He looked magnificent, a golden warrior radiating defiance. He thanked the dragons with a mock bow, tucked the staff behind his ear, having shrunk it to the size of a sewing needle, and shot up through the water, leaving the Dragon Kings humiliated and plotting their revenge. He had armed himself, but he had also made his first enemies in the celestial bureaucracy. Upon returning to the surface, Wukong displayed his new treasures to his subjects. He grew the staff until it pierced the clouds, then shrank it until it vanished. The monkeys cheered, their morale soaring. The Flower Fruit Mountain became a hub of activity. Wukong formed alliances with other demon kings of the world, including the Bull Demon King, the Rock Demon King, and the Lion Spirit. They spent their days drilling armies and their nights in revelry, drinking vast quantities of wine and boasting of their freedom. One afternoon, after a particularly heavy bout of drinking, Wukong fell into a deep, stuporous sleep beneath the shade of an ancient pine tree. As he slumbered, his conscious mind drifted into the haze. Suddenly, he saw two figures approaching him. One had the head of a horse, the other the head of an ox. They held a rope made of ghost grass and a warrant inscribed with dark runes. Without a word, Oxhead and Horseface hooked the rope around Wukong's soul and began to drag him away. Wukong's spirit, stumbling and confused, followed them. They walked through a landscape of desolation, where the sky was the color of bruised flesh and the wind whispered the names of the forgotten. They arrived at the gate of a massive, foreboding city. Above the gate, an iron plaque read, "The Land of Darkness." The realization hit Wukong like a slap. "The Land of Darkness," he shouted, his drunken stupor evaporating instantly. "That is the domain of Yama, the King of Death. I am an immortal. I have transcended the 3 worlds and the 5 elements. Why have you brought me here?" "Your lifespan is exhausted," Oxhead grunted. "We are here to collect." "Exhausted?" Wukong roared. He reached behind his ear. Even in his spirit form, the connection to the golden hooped rod remained. He pulled out the needle, willed it into a thick iron cudgel, and smashed it into the ground. The force of the blow shattered the gate of the underworld. "I will not go!" Wukong screamed. He fought his way into the city, clubbing the demon guards aside like straw dolls. The ghosts of the dead fled in terror. The skeletal wardens cowered in the shadows. He marched straight into the Hall of Darkness, where the 10 kings of the underworld sat in judgment. The 10 kings, seeing this ferocious monkey spirit tearing apart their bureaucracy, descended from their high seats in panic. "Hi, Immortal, please. There must be a mistake. Tell us your name." "I am Sun Wukong, the heaven-born sage of Flower Fruit Mountain," he announced, planting one foot on the judge's table. "Who are you to claim me?" "We are the emperors of the underworld," they replied, trembling. "Perhaps it is a case of mistaken identity. Many people in the world share the same name." "Bring me the register of life and death," Wukong demanded. "I will check for myself." Afraid to refuse, the judge hurriedly brought out the great ledgers of the cosmos. Wukong flipped through the books, the bird section, the beast section, the insect section, until he found the monkey section. Under the classification of stone monkey, he found his name. It was written, Sun Wukong, heaven-born stone monkey. Lifespan, 342 years. A peaceful death. 342 years? Wukong scoffed. "I have already achieved the Tao. This book is invalid." He snatched a heavy brush, dipped it in the darkest ink, and with broad, angry strokes, he crossed out his name. He did not stop there. He flipped through the pages, listing all the monkeys of Flower Fruit Mountain, the gibbons, the macaques, the baboons, and crossed their names out as well. He obliterated the ink until the paper was soaked and illegible. "There." Wukong threw the notebook down. "Now the account is closed. I am no longer subject to your laws, and neither are my people." With a triumphant laugh, He fought his way out of the Hall of Darkness, swinging his staff and knocking the wheel of reincarnation off its axis. He leaped from the ghostly city and woke with a start under the pine tree. His generals were standing around him, concerned. "Great King," they said, "you have been sleeping for so long, and you were shouting in your sleep." Wukong sat up, rubbing his eyes. "I have been to the land of darkness," he told them, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "And I have ensured that none of us will ever have to go there again." In the underworld, the 10 kings gathered the defaced registers, their faces pale. In the ocean, the dragon kings nursed their bruised pride. Together, they drafted memorials of complaint, written in blood and tears, and sent them ascending on the smoke of incense to the highest court of the universe, the Cloud Palace of the Golden Gates. The complaints reached the Jade Emperor as he sat upon his dragon throne, bathed in the divine light of the Empyrean. The reports were damning. This baneful monkey from the lower realms extorted treasure from the sea, violated the laws of death, destroyed the books of judgment, trampled the dignity of the gods. The Jade Emperor frowned, the movement causing thunder to roll across the mortal realm. "How did such a demon arise?" he asked. "Send the celestial army to arrest him immediately." But the great white planet, the gold star of Venus, Tai Jinxing, a spirit of peace and diplomacy, stepped forward. He was an ancient, benevolent deity, with long white robes and a kindly smile. "Your Majesty," Venus advised, bowing low, "this monkey was born of heaven and earth. He has achieved immortality and possesses great power. If we send the army, it will cost us much divine effort and disturb the peace of the realms. Why not issue a decree of amnesty? Invite him to heaven. Give him a small official title. Keep him here where we can watch him. If he behaves, well and good. If he rebels, he will be trapped within our walls." The Jade Emperor saw the wisdom in this bloodless solution. Let it be done. Venus descended to Flowerfruit Mountain on a cloud of auspicious colors. He found Wukong drilling his troops. "I come from the Emperor of Heaven," Venus announced. "His Majesty has heard of your attainment and invites you to the upper realm to receive an immortal appointment." Wukong was delighted. "Heaven! I have always wanted to see it." He didn't even wait for Venus. He somersaulted onto a cloud and shot upward, arriving at the southern heavenly gate before the old diplomat could even catch his breath. The gate was a vision of overwhelming grandeur. It was built of deep lapis lazuli and guarded by the 4 great heavenly kings. Giant serpents wound around the pillars, and phoenixes danced above the arches. The mist here was not water vapor, but pure, condensed golden light. Wukong tried to barge in, but the guards blocked him with their halberds. "Let me in," Wukong shouted. "I am invited." Venus arrived just in time to smooth things over. He led Wukong through the gate, and for the first time the monkey walked the streets of heaven. It was a realm of impossible beauty. There were 33 celestial palaces and 72 treasure halls. The roads were paved with gold. The flowers were carved from jade but bloomed with life. Cranes sang songs of the Tao, and the air smelled of eternal spring. They entered the treasure hall of divine mists to face the Jade Emperor. Wukong stood upright, refusing to kneel. "I am here," he said simply. "Which seat is mine?" The celestial ministers gasped at his insolence. "Wild monkey! Kneel!" The Jade Emperor, maintaining his composure, waved them down. "He is a creature of the earth. He does not know our etiquette. We forgive him." He turned to his ministers. "What position is vacant?" "The Hall of Imperial Stables needs a supervisor," a minister replied. "Very well," the Emperor declared. "We appoint Sun Wukong as the Bimawan, keeper of the heavenly horses." Wukong was thrilled. He assumed this was a high rank. He was given a register and led to the celestial stables. The horses under his care were magnificent beasts: red hare, flying rabbit, dragon steed. Their coats shimmered like satin, and their hooves struck sparks against the clouds. For half a month, Wukong took his job seriously. He was diligent. He untied the horses by day to graze on celestial grass and watered them by night at the heavenly river. Under his care, the horses grew fat and spirited. They slept standing up, energized by his vital presence. One day, the other officials of the stables prepared a banquet to welcome him. As they drank wine, Wukong asked casually, "This title, Bimawan, what rank is it?" The officials paused, exchanging awkward glances. It has no rank," one whispered. "No rank?" Wukong asked, confused. "Is it so high it transcends rank?" "No," the official replied, looking down. "It is the lowest of the low. It is unclassified. You are a glorified stable boy. You are responsible for horse manure. If the horses are well, you get no praise. If they sicken, you are punished." The realization hit Wukong like a physical blow. The wine cup shattered in his hand. The blood rushed to his face, burning his eyes. "They tricked me!" Wukong roared, overturning the table. The crash echoed through the stables, frightening the divine steeds. "I, the handsome Monkey King. I, who mastered the 72 transformations. I, who hold the pillar of the ocean. They make me a stable boy?" He pulled the golden hooped rod from his ear. With a scream of fury, he fought his way out of the stables. He charged to the southern heavenly gate, swinging his staff. The guards, seeing the terrifying rage in his eyes, did not dare stop him. He somersaulted back to earth, landing on Flower Fruit Mountain. His subjects gathered around him. "Great King, you have been gone for over 10 years in heaven. What great title did you bring back?" 10 years, Wukong spat. "I was there only half a month. A day in heaven is a year on earth. And do not ask about titles. They made me a horse keeper. They humiliated me." As he fumed, 2 one-horned demon kings approached him with a gift: a yellow robe. "Great King," they suggested, "if you have such power, why serve heaven? Why not take a title that matches your reality?" Wukong looked at the banner they offered. He unfurled it. On it were written 4 great characters that blazed in the sunlight. "From now on," Wukong declared, his voice shaking the mountain, "I am no longer just a king. Tell the demon kings of the world. Tell the Jade Emperor himself. My title is..." He planted the banner on the highest peak. The wind caught it, snapping it open for all the worlds to see. The Great Sage, equaling heaven. The banner of rebellion snapped in the wind atop the Flower Fruit Mountain. Its 4 crimson characters: Great Sage, equaling heaven, burning like a challenge against the sun. The Jade Emperor, observing this from the Cloud Palace, was no longer amused. The insolence of the monkey had crossed the line from nuisance to threat. He commanded the supreme generals of the celestial army, Li Jing, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, and his son, the third Prince Nezha, to descend with a punitive force and crush the demon. But the battle did not go as heaven anticipated. The Monkey King, fueled by humiliation and armed with the weight of the ocean, was a force of nature. He defeated the giant spirit god with a casual swing of his iron cudgel. He fought Prince Nezha, a deity of immense power, to a standstill. Nezha, in his three-headed, six-armed form, wielded the universal ring and the fire-tipped spear, turning the sky into a kaleidoscope of violence. Yet, Wukong simply plucked a hair, transformed it into a clone of himself, and outmaneuvered the young god, striking his shoulder and sending him fleeing back to the clouds in pain. Defeated, General Li Jing returned to the Jade Emperor with a heavy heart. "The monkey's magic is too great," he reported. "He demands the title, Great Sage equaling Heaven. If we do not grant it, he vows to climb the Hall of Mists and take the throne himself." Once again, the great white planet, Tai-Bai Jinxing, stepped forward, his voice a balm on the Emperor's fury. "Your Majesty," he advised, "this monkey knows only vanity. The title, Great Sage equaling Heaven, is merely empty words. Let us grant him the title. It carries no salary and no real authority. We will build him a residence in the heavenly garden and keep him idle. When his heart is content, he will not cause trouble." The Jade Emperor, weary of war, agreed. And so, for the second time, Sun Wukong ascended to heaven. This time, he was received with pomp and circumstance. A residence was built for him to the right of the Peach Garden of the Queen Mother of the West. He was given 2 immortal officers to serve him. He ate 3 meals a day and slept soundly at night. He wandered the celestial streets, greeting the stars and constellations as brothers, calling the ox, the rat, and the dragon by their first names. He was truly free, respected, and idle. But idleness is the devil's workshop, and a monkey's nature is restless. The Jade Emperor, fearing that Wukong's aimless wandering would lead to mischief, summoned him one morning. "Sun Wukong," the Emperor said, "the Peach Garden is near your residence. We appoint you as its guardian. Look after it well." Wukong was overjoyed. To put a monkey in charge of a fruit garden was like putting a dragon in charge of the rain. He rushed to the garden, eager to inspect his new domain. The Peach Garden of Immortality was a realm of sensory overload. The soil was rich and dark, nourishing trees that had stood since the beginning of time. There were 3,600 trees in total. In the front were 1,200 trees with tiny flowers and small fruits. These ripened once every 3,000 years. Anyone who ate them would become an immortal, their body light and healthy. In the middle were 1,200 trees with layers of petals and sweet, heavy fruits. These ripened once every 6,000 years. Anyone who ate them would ascend to the ranks of the ageless, flying on mists and riding rainbows. In the back were 1,200 trees with purple veins and pale yellow pits. These were the rarest of all. They ripened only once every 9,000 years. Anyone who ate just one would become as eternal as heaven and earth, shining with the brilliance of the sun and moon. Wukong dismissed the land spirits and guards. "I will inspect the trees myself," he claimed. Once alone, the temptation was irresistible. He climbed the trees in the back section. The peaches were heavy, cool, and fragrant. He picked the largest, ripest ones and devoured them, the sweet nectar running down his chin, filling his body with pure, condensed spiritual energy. He did this day after day. He slept in the branches, shrinking himself to the size of a caterpillar to hide among the leaves. He ate until he was gorged, consuming the harvest of eons. One morning, the serenity of the garden was broken by the arrival of the 7 fairies. They had been sent by the Queen Mother of the West to gather peaches for the grand festival of Immortal Peaches, a banquet held for all the high gods of the cosmos. The fairies searched the garden, but found it stripped bare. In the front, only small buds remained. In the back, they found nothing but broken branches and peach pits. Finally, on a single branch, they saw one half-eaten peach. As they reached for it, Wukong, who had been sleeping in that very tree, woke up. He grew to his normal size, brandishing his iron rod. "Who dares disturb my sleep?" he roared. The fairies trembled. "Great sage, we are sent by the Queen Mother to gather fruit for the festival." "A festival?" Wukong asked, his eyes narrowing. "Who is invited?" The fairies rattled off the guest list. The Buddha of the West, the Bodhisattvas, the Guanyin of the South, the Emperor of the North, the great immortals of the 8 caves. The list went on and on, naming every dignitary of importance. "And me?" Wukong asked, pointing to his chest. "Did you invite the great sage equaling heaven?" We did not see your name on the list," the fairies admitted. The insult was sharper than a blade. Despite his title, despite his power, they still saw him as an outsider, a monkey unworthy of their table. "Stay here," Wukong commanded. He cast an immobilizing spell, freezing the 7 fairies in place amidst the trees, their eyes wide with fear. Wukong summoned a cloud and sped toward the Jade Pool, where the banquet was being prepared. He arrived early. The gods had not yet gathered, but the feast was laid out. The smell of dragon liver paste and phoenix marrow soup filled the air. Casks of celestial wine, brewed from the essence of starlight, stood ready. Wukong's anger turned to gluttony. He plucked a few hairs, chewed them up, and blew them out, transforming them into sleep insects. The insects landed on the faces of the servants and winemakers, sending them into a deep slumber. Alone in the banquet hall, the Monkey King indulged in a binge of epic proportions. He tipped massive jars of wine into his mouth, drinking until he was stumbling drunk. He grabbed handfuls of rare delicacies, stuffing his cheeks. Drunken and hazy, he stumbled out of the hall. He meant to go home, but in his stupor, he lost his way and arrived at the Tushita Palace, the residence of the Supreme Patriarch Laozi, the highest sage of Taoism. The palace was empty. Laozi was lecturing elsewhere. Wukong wandered into the alchemy chamber. There, glowing with a soft golden fire, were 5 gourds. Inside them were the 9 turn golden elixirs, the ultimate medicine of immortality that Laozi had spent millennia refining. "These are treasures," Wukong slurred. I should take a few for the road. He tipped the gourds back and swallowed the pills like they were roasted soybeans. He ate them all. As the elixir settled in his stomach, the cold shock of sobriety began to return. He looked around at the empty gourds, the ruined banquet in his mind's eye, and the frozen fairies in the garden. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced his heart. "I have caused a disaster," he whispered. "The Jade Emperor will not forgive this. I must go. I must go down." He did not return to his celestial residence. He fought his way out of the west heavenly gate, making himself invisible, and plummeted back to the red dust of the earth, back to the Flower Fruit Mountain. He had feasted on the heavens, but the bill was about to come due. The silence on Flower Fruit Mountain was shattered not by the song of birds, but by the rolling thunder of war drums. The Jade Emperor, upon discovering the ruin of the peach garden, the theft of the wine, and the consumption of Laozi's sacred elixir, had finally abandoned all notions of mercy. This was no longer a nuisance, it was a cosmic crisis. The Emperor mobilized the full might of the celestial army. 100,000 heavenly soldiers descended from the clouds, darkening the sky like a storm of steel. They cast a heaven and earth net, a magical barrier that encased the entire mountain, blocking all escape routes. The air grew heavy with the pressure of divine intent. Leading the assault were the 4 heavenly kings, the 9 luminaries, the 28 constellations, and the great King Li Jing with his son Nezha. They shouted challenges that shook the peaks, demanding the monkey's surrender. Wukong, however, was far from afraid. The elixir and the peaches burned within him, granting him boundless energy. "Children," he shouted to his trembling monkey subjects, "go hide in the deep caves. Let old Sun handle this." He leaped to the summit, clad in his golden chainmail, the phoenix feathers of his cap dancing in the wind. He swung his iron rod, and the battle began. It was a clash of titans. Wukong fought the 9 luminaries single-handedly, his staff a blur of gold that deflected swords, axes, and lightning. He laughed as he fought, a maniacal sound that unnerved the gods. Seeing that their standard generals could not subdue him, the Jade Emperor dispatched a special summons to the River of Libation in the majestic mountains of the mortal realm. He called for his nephew, the true lord, Erlang Shen, the greatest warrior deity who hunted with a celestial hound and possessed a third truth-seeing eye in the center of his forehead. Erlang Shen arrived with his 6 sworn brothers and his hunting dog. The duel between Wukong and Erlang was the pinnacle of magical combat. They did not just cross weapons, they fought with transformations. Wukong, seeking to lose his pursuer, transformed into a sparrow flitting among the trees. Erlang Shen, his third eye piercing the illusion, instantly transformed into a hungry hawk spreading its wings. Wukong dove into the water, becoming a fish. Erlang became a crane, his long beak poised to strike. Wukong slithered onto the bank as a water snake. Erlang became a gray crane to snatch him. Wukong, desperate, transformed into a bustard, a bird of low repute. Erlang, disgusted by the form, reverted to his true self and shot an arrow from his golden bow. The chase continued until they reached the mountain temple. Wukong, running out of options, transformed himself into the temple itself. His mouth became the entrance, his eyes the windows, his tongue the bodhisattva statue. But he had a problem with his tail. He could not hide it, so he transformed it into a flagpole standing behind the temple. Erlang Shen arrived and laughed. "I have seen many temples, but never one with a flagpole in the back. This is the ape." He raised his three-pointed, double-edged lance to smash the door. Wukong's teeth. Wukong reverted to his true form and fled to the sky, but he was surrounded. The Monkey King was fierce, but he was one against thousands. From the high heavens, Laozi, watching the battle, decided to end it. He withdrew the diamond snare, Vajra bracelet, from his sleeve. "This weapon is made of kun, steel," Laozi murmured to the Bodhisattva Guanyin beside him. "It can absorb all things and transforms unfathomably." He dropped the bracelet. It fell from the zenith of heaven, striking Wukong square on the head with the sound of a cracking gong. Dizzied and stumbling, Wukong lost his footing. The celestial hound lunged, biting deeply into his calf. The monkey fell, and instantly the 7 brothers of Erlang Shen were upon him, binding him with ropes of demon-binding glowing cord and hooking his collarbone with iron talons. The great sage was captured. He was dragged to the demon execution stage in heaven. The sentence was immediate death. The executioners rained lightning bolts upon him, but they fizzled against his skin. They blasted him with divine fire, but he merely yawned. They tried to hack him into pieces with axes, but the blades shattered on contact. "Your Majesty," Laozi explained, inspecting the prisoner, "this monkey has eaten the immortal peaches, drank the celestial wine, and consumed my 5 gourds of golden elixir. He has refined them all into his body using the Samadhi fire. He is a diamond body now. He cannot be harmed by weapons." "What shall we do?" the Emperor asked in frustration. "Hand him over to me," Laozi proposed. "I will put him in my crucible of 8 trigrams. I will refine him with civil and martial fire. I will separate the elixir from his body, and in doing so, reduce him to ash." The Emperor agreed. Wukong was shoved into the massive furnace, and the lid was sealed. The fire was stoked to a heat that could melt stars. But Wukong did not die. Inside the furnace, amidst the roaring flames, he found a spot corresponding to the Chun, wind trigram. Wind, he knew, feeds fire, but wind itself contains no fire. By crouching in the wind sector, he avoided the direct flames. However, the wind churned the smoke, which burned his eyes incessantly. For 49 days, he suffered. His eyes turned red, the pupils shrinking to golden slits. He wept tears of soot, but he did not burn. Instead, the heat tempered him. It fused the elixirs permanently into his being. The smoke, intended to blind him, instead refined his vision, granting him the fiery golden eyes, Huoyan Jinjing, sight that could perceive evil in any form, seeing through any disguise or illusion. On the 49th day, Laozi ordered the furnace opened, expecting to find dust. As the lid was lifted, Wukong, who had been listening, gathered all his strength. He heard the rush of air and leaped. With a roar that cracked the ceiling of the Tushita Palace, he burst forth. He kicked the furnace over, spilling sacred coals that fell to earth, creating the flame mountain. He grabbed his golden hooped rod from his ear and went on a rampage that eclipsed all previous rebellions. He fought from the Tushita Palace all the way to the Hall of Divine Mists. He possessed a berserker fury now. He was soot-stained, red-eyed, and invincible. The 9 luminaries fled. The 28 constellations shut their doors. He smashed pillars and overturned tables. He stood before the Jade Emperor's throne, screaming, "The Emperor takes turns. Next year, it should be me." The Jade Emperor, realizing that no Taoist power could stop this monster, sent a messenger to the west. "Go," he commanded, "and ask the Buddha to come and save us." In the Western Paradise, at the Thunder Monastery on Vulture Peak, the Tathagata Buddha sat upon a lotus throne, surrounded by bodhisattvas and arhats. He heard the summons and smiled, an expression of infinite compassion and unshakable calm. "I will go to subdue this demon," he told his assembly. "You all sit here in meditation. Do not relax your dhyana." The Buddha arrived at the Hall of Divine Mists, just as Wukong was threatening to smash the Hall of Miraculous Mists into rubble. The Buddha blocked his path. He did not carry a weapon. He appeared huge, radiating a golden light that was not blinding, but solid. "You are that monkey who caused this disturbance?" Buddha asked, his voice sounding like the hum of the universe. "I am the great sage equaling heaven," Wukong announced, looking up at the giant figure. "Who are you to stop me? I have magic power. I have the transformation arts, and I will take the Emperor's throne." "You are but a monkey who became a spirit," Buddha said gently. "The Jade Emperor has cultivated the Tao for 1,750 kalpas. Each kalpa is 129,600 years. Count the years. What right do you have to usurp him?" "He may be old," Wukong retorted, "but strength should rule. I can somersault 108,000 li in a single bound. I can reach the edge of the universe. Why shouldn't I rule?" "Let us make a wager," Buddha proposed, extending his right hand. It looked like a small lotus leaf. "If you have the ability to jump out of my right palm, I will count you as the winner. I will ask the Jade Emperor to move out and give you the heavens. But if you cannot, you will go back to Earth and cultivate for a few more kalpas." Wukong looked at the hand. It was no more than a foot across. He laughed. "This old monk is foolish. I can cross oceans in a blink. His palm is nothing." "Done!" Wukong cried. He stepped onto Buddha's palm, standing like a tiny speck. "I'm off!" he shouted and launched his cloud somersault. He flew like a streak of light, faster than wind, faster than thought. He flew until the halls of heaven were gone, until the stars blurred. He flew until he saw nothing but emptiness, save for 5 great pillars of pink flesh rising into the infinite mist at the very edge of the cosmos. This must be the end of the world, Wukong thought, and these 5 pillars must be the supports of the sky. I will leave a mark here to prove I arrived. He pulled out a hair, turned it into a brush, and wrote on the middle pillar in large letters, "The great sage equaling heaven was here." Then, feeling mischievous and wanting to mark his territory further, he urinated at the base of the first pillar. Satisfied, he somersaulted back, landing in the center of Buddha's palm. "I have returned," Wukong shouted. "I went to the end of the world. I saw 5 flesh-colored pillars holding up the sky. I left my mark. Now fulfill your promise and give me the throne." The Buddha looked at him with pity. "You piss-ant ape," he scolded. "You never left the palm of my hand." "Impossible," Wukong argued. "I went to the edge of the universe." "Look down," Buddha said. Wukong looked. At the base of the Buddha's middle finger, written in tiny script, were the words, "The great sage equaling heaven was here." And from the crook of the Buddha's thumb came the distinct, pungent smell of monkey urine. Wukong was stunned. "It was magic! Sorcery! I don't believe it! I'm going back to check!" He crouched to jump again, but the Buddha did not wait. He flipped his hand over. The palm turned into a canopy of 5 fingers. They transformed into the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. They descended like a falling sky. Wukong tried to hold them up with his golden hooped rod, but the weight was the weight of karmic law. It was inescapable. Boom! The hand slammed into the earth, forming a massive mountain chain known as Wuxing Shan, the 5 Elements Mountain. Wukong was buried beneath it, pressed into a stone box deep within the roots of the mountain. Only his head and one hand were left free, protruding from the rock face. He struggled, pushing with all his might. The mountain shook. The earth cracked. He was about to break free. From the clouds, Buddha saw the mountain trembling. He took a golden slip of paper from his sleeve, inscribed with the 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. He handed it to his disciple Ananda, who flew down and pasted it on the summit of the mountain. Instantly, the mountain settled. The rock fused together, becoming solid and immovable. It grew roots that connected to the veins of the earth. Wukong was trapped. He could breathe, he could blink, he could speak, but he could not move his body a single inch. The Buddha summoned the local earth god and the mountain guardians. "Watch over him," he commanded. "When he is hungry, feed him iron pellets. When he is thirsty, give him molten copper to drink. This will preserve his life but punish his gluttony." "How long?" the earth god asked. "Until the day his karmic debt is paid," Buddha replied, turning back toward the west. "Until the one who is destined to release him arrives." And so, the great sage equaling heaven, who had defied gravity, death, and the gods, was pinned under the weight of his own arrogance. He lay there as the seasons turned. Moss grew on his eyebrows, grass sprouted from his ears. He watched the sun rise and set, eating iron and drinking copper, waiting. 500 years would pass. Dynasties would rise and fall in the human world. The name of the Monkey King would fade into legend, whispered by woodcutters and storytellers. But under the 5 Elements Mountain, the fire in his eyes did not go out. He was waiting for the monk. 500 years is a vast ocean of time. For the mortal world, it is the rise and fall of dynasties, the erosion of cliffs, the shifting of riverbeds. For Sun Wukong, trapped beneath the crushing weight of the 5 Elements Mountain, it was an eternity of stillness. The moss grew thick upon his cheeks, weaving into his golden fur. Wild grass sprouted from his ears, and birds nested in the tangled mat of hair atop his exposed head. He drank the molten copper, and ate the iron pellets, his immortal body enduring the humiliation of paralysis. He watched the seasons wheel overhead, the biting frost of winter, the humid breath of summer. But he could not move a single finger to brush the snow from his eyes. Far away, in the prosperous capital of Chang'an, the wheel of destiny began to turn. The Tang dynasty was in full bloom, ruled by the Emperor Taizong. But spiritual darkness plagued the land. The Bodhisattva Guanyin, acting on the decree of the Buddha, searched for a pilgrim of exceptional piety to travel to the western heaven and retrieve the true scriptures, the Tripitaka, to salvage the souls of the East. She found her champion in a young monk named Xuanzang, later known as Tripitaka, a man of gentle heart and iron resolve, who was the reincarnation of the golden cicada, a former disciple of Buddha. Xuanzang set out on his white horse, leaving the safety of the empire behind. But the wilderness was cruel. He had barely crossed the frontier when he lost his 2 human attendants to tiger demons. Alone and terrified, guided only by the hunter Liu Boqin, the monk approached the boundary of the 2 Frontiers Mountain, the very place that was once called 5 Elements Mountain. As they climbed the rugged path, a voice erupted from the earth, a sound like a broken gong, hoarse from centuries of disuse, yet thundering with suppressed power. "My master has come! My master has come!" Xuanzang trembled, pulling on his horse's reins. "Who is calling?" They followed the sound to a stone box at the base of a cliff. There, protruding from the rock, was a monkey's head, covered in dirt and vegetation, his eyes burning with a desperate, golden light. "It is an old monkey spirit," the hunter Liu explained. "Legend says he has been trapped here since the Wang Meng usurpation. He never moves, but he never dies." Wukong looked at the trembling monk. "Are you the pilgrim sent by the Emperor of the East to fetch scriptures from the West?" "I am," Xuanzang replied softly. "I am the great sage equaling heaven," Wukong rasped. 500 years ago, I caused trouble in the celestial palace, and the Buddha pinned me here. But the Bodhisattva Guanyin came to me and promised that if I protected the scripture seeker on his journey, I would be released and find my salvation. "Master, get me out. I will protect you to the western heaven. I will not let any demon touch you." Xuanzang, moved by the creature's plight and the mention of Guanyin, wanted to help. "But the mountain is solid stone. How can my weak hands release you?" "You do not need strength," Wukong said. "Go to the summit. There is a golden tag stamped with the Buddha's letters. Just remove it." Xuanzang climbed the treacherous peak. There, fluttering in the wind on a large square stone, was the golden talisman inscribed with Om Mani Padme Hum. The monk bowed, burned incense, and prayed to the west. "If this monkey is destined to be my disciple, let this seal be easily removed." He reached out and gently peeled the paper away. It did not tear. It lifted into the air, carried by a fragrant breeze, and a voice echoed from the clouds. "I am the guardian of the prison. I return the seal to the Buddha." The weight of 5 centuries lifted. "Master, go far away," Wukong shouted from below. "Farther. Ride your horse until you cannot see me." Xuanzang and the hunter galloped miles away. Suddenly, the earth convulsed. A sound louder than 1,000 thunderclaps shattered the silence. The 5 Elements mountain cracked, crumbled, and exploded outward. From the cloud of dust and debris, a figure shot into the sky, a golden streak of liberated joy. Wukong landed before the monk, naked save for a tiger-skin kilt he fashioned moments later. He knelt and touched his head to the ground. "Master, I am free." Thus began the partnership. But the honeymoon was short. Wukong was a creature of violence. Xuanzang was a man of peace. A few days into their journey, they encountered 6 bandits named Eye that Sees and Delights, Ear that Hears and Loves, Nose that Smells and Rejoices, Tongue that Tastes and Desires, Mind that Conceives and Lusts, and Body that Supports and Suffers. These were allegories for the 6 senses that plague humanity. Wukong did not see allegories. He saw thieves. When they attacked, he took out his golden hooped rod, which he had retrieved from his ear, and beat them into meat paste. Xuanzang was horrified. "You could have scared them away," he scolded, tears streaming down his face. "You have no compassion. How can you be a monk if you kill so easily?" Wukong, whose pride was as brittle as dry wood, could not tolerate the scolding. "If I hadn't killed them, they would have killed you. If you are going to nag me, I quit." In a fit of rage, Wukong somersaulted into the sky, abandoning the monk in the wilderness. He flew to the Eastern Ocean to have tea with the Dragon King, venting his frustrations. But upon seeing a painting of the 3 attempts to hand over the shoes, a story of humility and patience, Wukong felt a pang of guilt. He remembered his promise to Guanyin. Meanwhile, Xuanzang sat weeping on the roadside. An old woman, Guanyin in disguise, approached him. She gave him a beautiful cassock and a cap inlaid with gold. She also taught him a secret sutra, the band-tightening spell, Song Gu Zhou. "When your disciple returns," the woman said, "have him wear this cap. If he disobeys, recite this spell." Wukong returned, contrite but still arrogant. He saw the shiny cap in Xuanzang's bag. "That looks fine," he remarked. "You can have it," Xuanzang offered. Wukong put on the cap. It fit perfectly, but the moment it settled on his brow, it rooted itself to his flesh. Xuanzang, testing the spell, began to chant. Pain, white-hot, blinding agony. It felt as if Wukong's skull was being constricted by an iron vice, as if his brain was being squeezed out of his ears. He fell to the ground, rolling and screaming, tearing at the cap. But the cap had vanished. Only a thin, golden band remained fused to his head. "Stop! Stop!" Wukong pleaded. Xuanzang stopped chanting. The pain vanished instantly. "You cursed me!" Wukong snarled, raising his staff to strike the monk. Xuanzang began chanting again. The pain returned, dropping the great sage to his knees. "I submit! I submit!" Wukong cried, sweating from terror. "This is the method of the Buddha," Xuanzang said, his voice trembling but firm. "You have a wild heart, a monkey of the mind. It must be tethered. If you follow the precepts and protect me, I will never say the spell. If you embrace violence and pride, you will know pain." Wukong touched the golden fillet. It was cold, permanent. He realized then that he was no longer the great sage equaling heaven who answered to no one. He was a pilgrim. He was a disciple. The physical mountain had been removed, but a mountain of discipline had taken its place. With Wukong subdued, though often begrudgingly, the pilgrimage continued. They were joined by 2 other disciples, Zhu Bajie, Pigsy, a gluttonous, lustful pig monster who was once the marshal of the heavenly canopy, and Sha Wujing, Sandy, a river ogre who was once the curtain-lifting general. Together with the white dragon horse, the group formed the 5 elements of the quest. But the bonds of this new family were fragile, and the demons of the West knew how to exploit them. The most tragic test came in the form of the White Bone Demon by Gujing. They arrived at a desolate mountain range where the rocks were shaped like skulls, and the wind howled like grieving widows. Bai Gujing was a spirit of the unburied dead, a skeleton who had attained consciousness. She desired a bite of Xuanzang's flesh, which rumor said would grant immortality. But she knew she could not defeat Sun Wukong in battle. She had to defeat him through deception. She waited until Wukong went to pick fruit. She transformed herself into a beautiful young girl, carrying a basket of steamed bread. She approached the monk with a sweet smile. "Holy Father, please accept this offering." Xuanzang and Pigsy were charmed, but Wukong returned just in time. With his fiery golden eyes, he saw through the skin and silk. He saw the bleached white bones beneath. "Demon!" Wukong shouted. He did not hesitate. He raised his staff and struck the girl on the head. She collapsed, dead. Her spirit, however, used a magic trick to escape, leaving behind a fake corpse. Xuanzang was appalled. "You murdered an innocent girl!" "She was a demon, Master. Look at the bread. It is actually toads and stones." Pigsy, jealous of Wukong, whispered poison in the Master's ear. "He is lying. He used magic to change the bread to cover up his crime." Xuanzang began the tightening spell. Wukong begged for mercy, and the monk relented. But the demon was not finished. She returned as an old woman, crying for her missing daughter. Again, Wukong saw the truth. Again, he struck. The old woman fell. "You are a savage!" Xuanzang screamed, reciting the spell until Wukong fainted. "One more time, and I will banish you." Finally, the demon came as an old man, chanting Buddhist sutras, searching for his wife and daughter. Wukong knew this was the final trap. If he killed the man, he would be banished. If he didn't, the demon would eat his master. Wukong looked at the master who held his life in his hands. He looked at the demon, mocking him. "It is better to be banished than to let my master die," he decided. He summoned the local mountain spirits and deities. "Witness this," he commanded. "I am killing a demon." He struck the old man. This time he ensured the spirit did not escape. The corpse transformed into a pile of white skeletal bones, with the name Lady Whitebone written on the spine. But Xuanzang's heart had hardened. Fueled by Pigsy's slander, he wrote a letter of banishment. "You are too violent for the Buddha's way. Go back to your mountain. I am no longer your master." Wukong stood stunned. He offered the letter back. "Master, take off the fillet first." "I do not know the loose fillet spell," Xuanzang admitted. "Then I am still your disciple," Wukong said, tears falling. He bowed to Xuanzang, who turned his back. He bowed to the others, who looked away. With a heart heavy with injustice, Wukong somersaulted away, leaving the pilgrimage. He returned to Flower Fruit Mountain, only to find it ruined by hunters. He spent his time rebuilding his kingdom, trying to forget the cruel monk. But without the great sage, the pilgrims were doomed. They wandered into the pine forest, the domain of the yellow-robed monster, Kui Mulang, a fallen star spirit. The monster captured Xuanzang and turned him into a tiger, locking him in a cage. Pixie and Sandy fought, but were utterly defeated. Pixie, lazy and selfish, finally realized the truth. Without the monkey, they were nothing. He traveled to Flower Fruit Mountain. He found Wukong cleaning his armor. Pixie lied, cajoled, and finally used Wukong's own loyalty against him. The monster said the great sage is a fake. He said he would skin you. Wukong's anger flared, masking his concern. He returned, defeated the yellow-robed monster, revealing him to be the Woodwolf Star, and turned Xuanzang back into a human. The reunion was not filled with apologies, but a silent understanding. The master needed the warrior, and the warrior needed the path. As the years passed, the pilgrims faced fire, water, and deception. But the greatest emotional trial awaited them at the Flaming Mountains. They found their path blocked by a range of mountains that burned with an eternal, magical fire. The heat was so intense it scorched the clouds. The local soil gods explained that the fire could only be quenched by the plantain fan, Basho Fan, a mystical treasure capable of creating hurricanes. "Who owns this fan?" Wukong asked. "The Princess Iron Fan," they replied. "She lives in the palm leaf cave on Rakshasa Mountain." Wukong's heart sank. Princess Iron Fan was the wife of the Bull Demon King and the mother of the Red Boy. Months earlier, Wukong had helped Guanyin capture the Red Boy to become her disciple. To the parents, this was kidnapping. Wukong was no longer a brother to this family. He was an enemy. Wukong went to the cave. Princess Iron Fan emerged, swinging 2 swords. "You stole my son," she screamed. "Sister-in-law," Wukong pleaded. "He is now a deity attending the Bodhisattva. It is a promotion. Please, lend me the fan to put out the fire, and I will return it." She refused and swung the fan. A magical wind blasted Wukong 50,000 miles away. He had to stop himself by grabbing a mountain peak. Undeterred, he swallowed a wind-fixing pill, obtained from a bodhisattva, and returned. This time the fan did not move him. Terrified, the princess ran inside and locked the doors. Wukong transformed into a tiny gnat. He slipped into her teacup. When she drank it, he entered her stomach. He kicked and punched from the inside. "Spare me!" she cried, rolling on the floor. "I will give you the fan." She gave him a fan. Wukong hastened to the Flaming Mountains and waved it. But instead of rain, the fire grew 1,000 times hotter. It was a fake fan. Wukong escaped with singed fur. "The Bull Demon King has the true fan," the soil spirits told him. "He is currently feasting at the Emerald Cloud Cave with his mistress, the Jade-faced Fox, the Bull Demon King." 500 years ago, he and Wukong were sworn brothers. They had drunk wine together, defied heaven together. Now, they stood on opposite sides of destiny. Wukong found the Bull Demon King. He was a giant, magnificent and terrifying, dressed in black armor. "You dare show your face?" the bull roared. "You trapped my son, and now you harass my wife." "Brother," Wukong said, "the past is the past. I need the fan to save sentient beings." "Take my iron rod first," the bull attacked. The battle was titanic. They fought through the clouds and into the valleys. They were evenly matched in strength and magic. The Bull Demon King possessed the same 72 transformations as Wukong. Wukong turned into a goldfinch. The bull turned into a hawk. Wukong became a cormorant. The bull became a white crane. Wukong dove into the water as a carp. The bull became a crocodile. Seeing he could not win by force, Wukong used deception. He stole the bull's golden-hued water beast mount and transformed himself into the likeness of the Bull Demon King. He rode back to Princess Iron Fan. The princess, thinking her husband had returned, welcomed him. Wukong flirted with her, drank wine, and tricked her into revealing the location of the true fan, a tiny apricot leaf she kept in her mouth. He took it and left. But the Bull Demon King realized the trick. He transformed himself into Ju-Baji, Pigsy. He caught up to Wukong, who was carrying the large fan on his shoulder. "Brother Monkey," the fake Pigsy said, "that fan is heavy. Let me carry it." Wukong, usually so sharp, was exhausted and lowered his guard. He handed the fan over. The bull revealed himself, laughing, and grew the fan to giant size, swinging it at Wukong. The war began in earnest. Wukong and the real Pigsy attacked the Bull Demon King's cave. The bull revealed his true form, a cosmic white bull, 10,000 feet high, with horns like iron towers. He gored the mountains and trampled the earth. But Wukong was not alone. The Buddha sent the 4 heavenly kings and Neja to assist. They surrounded the bull from all 4 directions. Mirrors of light were used to pin him down. Neja threw his fire wheel onto the bull's horns. Defeated, bleeding, and surrounded, the Bull Demon King finally panted, "I submit." He was led away to the west to answer for his crimes. Princess Iron Fan, weeping, handed over the true fan. Wukong took the fan. He stood before the wall of fire that blocked their path to enlightenment. He swung it once. The fire died. He swung it twice. A cool breeze blew. He swung it thrice. Gentle rain began to fall. The path was open. But Wukong stood looking at the retreating figure of his old sworn brother, bound in chains. He realized that the journey to the west was a journey of severing attachments. He had lost his freedom to the fillet, his pride to the pilgrimage, and now his oldest friendship to the mission. He stored the fan, adjusted his tiger-skin kilt, and turned to help his master onto the horse. The west was getting closer, but the monkey's heart was growing older. The journey to the west was not merely a traversal of distance, it was a purification of the heart. As the pilgrims neared the end of their 14-year odyssey, the challenges became less about external monsters and more about internal demons. The most terrifying trial of all did not come from a cave or a swamp, but from the fractured mirror of Wukong's own soul. It began, as tragedies often do, with a misunderstanding. The pilgrims encountered a band of brigands. Wukong, perceiving the murderous intent in their hearts, struck them down with his usual efficiency. Xuanzang, exhausted and morally rigid, could not bear the violence. He recited the tightening spell, banished Wukong for the second time, and turned his face away. Wukong, hurt and indignant, left. But unlike before, he did not go to his mountain or the ocean. He went to the South Sea to weep before Guanyin. While Wukong was with the Bodhisattva, a shadow stirred near the pilgrims. A figure appeared before the weeping Xuanzang. It looked exactly like Sun Wukong. It wore the same tiger skin kilt, the same gold-banded cap, and wielded the same iron staff. "Master," the figure said, holding out a bowl of water, "drink this and forgive me." Xuanzang refused. "I have banished you. Go." The figure's face twisted into a snarl. "If you won't drink, then take this." He struck Xuanzang with the staff, knocking him unconscious, snatched the luggage containing the travel papers, and vanished. When Xuanzang awoke, he blamed Wukong. But when the disciples went to Flower Fruit Mountain to reclaim the luggage, they found the Monkey King sitting on the throne, reading the documents. This monkey claimed he would go to the west alone and become a Buddha himself. A battle ensued, but the disciples could not defeat him. They went to the South Sea to plead for help, only to find the real Wukong sitting peacefully with Guanyin. "I have been here for days," Wukong insisted. "Then who is on your mountain?" Guanyin asked. The real Wukong and Guanyin flew to the mountain. There they saw the impostor. The two monkeys locked eyes. It was like looking into a pool of water. "Impostor!" Wukong screamed. "Impostor!" the other screamed back. They clashed. It was a fight of perfect symmetry. Two golden hooped rods struck with the weight of mountains. Two gold-banded heads collided. They fought into the sky, their movements perfectly synchronized. They used the same transformations, the same insults, the same magic. "We will go to the Jade Emperor," Wukong shouted. "His mirror will reveal the truth." They fought their way to the Cloud Palace. The Jade Emperor ordered the one demon-reflecting mirror to be brought out. The mirror, which could strip away any disguise, shone upon them. But in the glass, there were simply two Sun Wukongs. Same clothes, same fur, same eyes of fire. The gods were baffled. "We will go to the underworld," Wukong roared. They crashed into the halls of hell. The kings of the underworld trembled. "Please," Wukong said, "check the book of life and death. Who is the fake?" But Wukong had erased his name centuries ago. There was no record. However, the underworld possessed a beast named Di Ting, Truth Listener, who could hear the hearts of all beings in the universe. Di Ting lay on the ground and listened. He heard the truth. He knew which one was real. But he looked at the two monkeys, both possessing the power to destroy the world, and trembled. "I cannot say," Di Ting whispered to the kings. "If I expose the fake, he will destroy the underworld in his rage. Only the Buddha can resolve this." And so the two monkeys, clawing and biting, somersaulted to the Western Paradise, to the Thunder Monastery on Vulture Peak. The Buddha sat upon his lotus throne. He saw them coming, two streaks of golden light churning the clouds. He turned to his assembly. "You possess the wisdom eye, but behold, Here come the two minds. The monkeys landed before the throne, kneeling in unison. "Lord Buddha," they cried together, "one of us is fake. Please distinguish the true from the false." The Buddha smiled, a gesture that encompassed all sorrow and understanding. "There are 4 spiritual primates in the universe," he explained. "The first is the stone monkey. The second is the red-buttocked horse monkey. The third is the long-armed gibbon, and the fourth is the 6-eared macaque." He pointed a finger at the impostor. The 6-eared macaque has sensitive ears that can discern principles. He can know the past and the future, and understand all things. He is not a transformation. He is a being who knows the secrets of the heart. The impostor, hearing his true name, panicked. He transformed into a bee to flee. But the Buddha tossed his golden alms bowl into the air. It trapped the bee, forcing the macaque back into his true form. Wukong, seeing his tormentor revealed, this creature who had stolen his face, his voice, and his master's love, did not hesitate. Before the Buddha could speak a word of mercy, Wukong brought his iron rod down. The 6-eared macaque fell dead, his brain matter scattered on the floor. "You wild monkey," Buddha scolded gently. "Why did you kill him?" But the deed was done. In killing the 6-eared macaque, Wukong had destroyed his own shadow. He had slain the 2 minds, the doubt, the resentment, and the duplicity that had plagued him. From this moment on, there was only one Sun Wukong, whole and singular, dedicated entirely to the path. The seasons turned 14 times. The pilgrims had traversed 108,000 miles. They had faced 80 trials. Finally, the silhouette of Vulture Peak appeared on the horizon, glowing with a light that did not cast shadows. They reached the base of the holy mountain. There was no path, only a turbulent river called the Cloudy Reach, wide and treacherous. A single log bridge spanned it, slippery and narrow. Xuanzang hesitated, fear gripping his mortal heart. "Come, master," Wukong urged. "It is easy." But Xuanzang dared not step on the log. From the mist, a boatman appeared, punting a bottomless boat. "The boat has no bottom," Xuanzang cried. "How can it carry us?" "This boat has ferried souls since the beginning of time," the boatman said. "It is steady as the mountain." Wukong pushed Xuanzang onto the boat. The other disciples followed. As the boat pushed off into the current, something drifted downstream. Xuanzang looked and screamed. It was a corpse, a dead body wearing monk's robes, floating face down. "Don't look! Don't look!" Wukong laughed, clapping his hands. "Master, that is you. That is your mortal shell. You have shed the dust of the world." "Congratulations, Master." Pigsy and Sandy cheered. When they reached the other shore, Xuanzang felt light. His body was no longer heavy with hunger or fatigue. He had discarded his physical form in the river. He was now a spirit body. They ascended the mountain to the Great Hall of Thunder. The sight was overwhelming. Thousands of arhats, bodhisattvas, and protectors stood in rows, glowing like forests of jade and gold. At the center sat the Tathagata Buddha. Xuanzang prostrated himself. "Your disciple has arrived from the east to receive the true scriptures." The Buddha nodded. The people of the East are foolish and violent. These scriptures are the source of cultivation. He ordered his assistants, Ananda and Kasyapa, to lead them to the library and give them the scrolls. In the library, Ananda and Kasyapa held out their hands. "What gift have you brought for us?" "I have traveled a long way," Xuanzang apologized. "I have no money." "No money?" Ananda scoffed. "Do you expect us to give away the wisdom of the universe for free? That would cheapen it." Grudgingly, they handed over the scrolls. The pilgrims packed them and left, overjoyed. But as they sat by a rock to inspect their prize, the ancient Buddha of the past, Dipankara, sent a gust of wind to blow the scrolls open. They were blank. There was not a single word on the paper. "We have been tricked," Xuanzang wept. "They gave us wordless books." Wukong was furious. "We go back." They stormed back to the Buddha. "Your assistants are thieves," Wukong shouted. "They asked for a bribe and gave us blank paper." The Buddha laughed. "Do not shout. The blank scriptures are actually the true ones. True wisdom has no words. But since the people of the East are too dense to understand emptiness, I will give you the written ones. But you must pay." Xuanzang understood. He took out his golden alms bowl, the only possession given to him by the Tang Emperor 14 years ago. He handed it to Ananda. It was his last attachment to his homeland, his last possession. With the bowl given, they received 5,048 scrolls of the true scriptures. The return journey was swift. The 8 Vajrapanis carried them on the wind. But the Buddha calculated that they had only undergone 80 trials. The number required for perfection was 81. "Drop them," a voice commanded. The wind died over the river to heaven. The pilgrims fell. They landed on the back of a giant white turtle, the same turtle who had ferried them years ago. "Did you ask the Buddha when I will become a dragon?" the turtle asked, referencing a promise Xuanzang had made. Xuanzang froze. In the excitement, he had forgotten. The turtle, silent and angry, submerged. The pilgrims were dumped into the icy water. They scrambled to shore, soaking wet. They had to dry the scriptures on a rock, which is why some sutras are incomplete to this day. This was the 81st trial, the failure of memory and the imperfection of the world. Finally, they returned to Chang'an. They presented the scriptures to the emperor. The mission was complete. The energy of the East was harmonized with the wisdom of the West. But the journey had one final act. The pilgrims were summoned back to Vulture Peak to receive their rewards. The Buddha spoke, "Xuanzang, for your unwavering will, you are appointed the Chandana Puja Buddha, Bud of sandalwood merit." Sun Wukong, the Buddha turned to the monkey. "Because you defeated demons and remained faithful, and because you tamed the 2 minds, you are appointed the Obe, victorious fighting Buddha, Du Zhansheng Fo." "Ju Baji," Buddha continued, "because your appetites are still strong, you will be the hawk cleanser of the altars, eating the leftover offerings." "Sha Hu Jing," Buddha said, "you will be the golden-bodied Arhat." The assembly cheered, but Wukong touched his head. He remembered the golden fillet, the source of his pain and discipline for 14 years. "World-honored one," Wukong said, stepping forward. I am a Buddha now. Can you please remove this band from my head? It is quite annoying." The Buddha smiled. "Is it still there?" Wukong reached up. His fingers touched his fur. The band was gone. "When did it go?" Wukong asked, astonished. "The band was the constraint of your own wild mind," Buddha said. "When your mind became the mind of a Buddha, the band ceased to exist. Sun Wukong, the stone monkey, the Bimawan, the great sage equaling heaven, the pilgrim, and now the victorious fighting Buddha, stood in the golden light. He looked back at the long road, the mountains he had crushed, the oceans he had crossed, the anger he had burned away. He realized then that the journey was never about the scriptures. The journey was the scripture. He folded his hands, bowed to the Tathagata, and for the first time in his immortal life, the Monkey King was truly, perfectly at peace. Thank you for journeying with me across the 10,000 miles, from the lush peaks of the Flower Fruit Mountain to the crystal depths of the Eastern Ocean, from the fires of the celestial furnace to the quiet serenity of Vulture Peak. If you enjoyed this deep dive into life of Sun Wukong, and if you found stillness amidst the transformations, please leave a like and subscribe to Hearths of Myths. May your spirit be free, may your burdens be as light as a cloud, and may you always have the wisdom to remove the tightening bands from your own heart. Sleep well,